Hello and welcome to Empire Sports Talk. I am your host, Roman Gennaro. I know it's been a long time since our last podcast. Life has been busy. Sorry for the mess behind me. If you're watching this on YouTube, as you can see, I'm in a different location. We are in the process of moving into our new location, and that'll be ready soon. But I wanted to get on and do an episode this week because we have a lot of big things that have happened and are going to happen in sports. So let's jump right in. I'm going to change up the order that I was planning on doing things in this podcast because I want to spend more time on the subject of LeBron James, so we're going to save that for last. The other big story in sports this week was the retirement of Tom Brady for the second time, but probably this time for good. And he is, to me, the unquestioned GOAT of football, greatest of all time, with Joe Montana second. And his retirement started a bit of an NFL quarterback carousel this offseason, with a lot of teams needing quarterbacks and a lot of quarterbacks needing to find new homes. So Tampa now jumps to the top of that list of in need of a new quarterback, with Kyle Trask being the only quarterback on their roster going into next year. And he's a good choice. He's a good quarterback. I like his potential. He was really good at the University of Florida. But that Bucs roster is a win now roster, and Kyle Trask is not set to be a win now quarterback. So, who will be under center for Tampa Bay next year? We'll find out. Many of the other names on that quarterback list are Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance. Now that San Francisco seems set to stay with rookie sensation Mr. Irrelevant no more, Brock Purdy going into next year. So where will Trey Lance land? And then with the draft having three pretty solid quarterbacks set to go in the first round, we'll see what happens. I believe that Aaron Rodgers will find himself in Las Vegas. I know a lot of people are linking him to the Jets for many reasons. Joe Namath came out and said that he would want the Jets to unretire his number 12 to allow Aaron Rodgers to play there. The Jets have a lot of young, really good pieces, a really good coach in Robert Saleh, and they just hired Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator, and as we know from last offseason, Aaron Rodgers has a good relationship with Nathaniel Hackett and wanted to be traded to Denver after they named him head coach. And with a lot of people believing that's why they named him head coach. But we saw how that went with Russell Wilson in Denver, as Nathaniel Hackett didn't even make it out of the season. More on Denver in a second. The Jets have a lot of good young pieces. If it weren't for quarterback injuries and the injury to star rookie running back Breece Hall, they probably would have found themselves in the playoffs. With rookie wide receiver Garrett Wilson, a couple other good young receivers, Breece Hall coming back healthy, and a familiar offensive coordinator for the Jets with a good defensive coach in Robert Saleh, the Jets seem to be an obvious choice for some for Aaron Rodgers. But to me, the obvious choice is Las Vegas. Not only because his former favorite target, Davante Adams, is now in Vegas, but Vegas has seemingly moved on from Derek Carr, with Derek Carr saying goodbye to Raiders Nation and the Raiders allowing him to speak to other teams. And so they have an opening at quarterback. A lot of people have either C.J. Stroud or Kentucky's Will Levis going to Vegas in the draft. But recently, after a Twitter question of what neighborhood will Aaron Rodgers be coming to next year, Davante Adams tweeted, "Mine," confirming that he is lobbying for his former running mate to join him in Vegas. And this is not a bad fit either. I think it's a great fit. I think it's a better fit than any team he had with Davante in Green Bay. Because not only would he have Davante, he would have Hunter Renfrow, who is a great number 2 wide receiver. He would have Darren Waller, who when healthy is one of the best tight ends in football. He would have Josh Jacobs, who led the league in rushing this last year, which would free up Vegas to focus this offseason on building that defense and making it better. They lost a lot of close games in the regular season, and we're still right there towards the end for playoff contention. So with a veteran like Aaron Rodgers coming in reuniting with Devontae Adams and having the weapons of Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, and Josh Jacobs, weapons the quality of which he hasn't had in a long time, I think Vegas more than makes sense for Aaron Rodgers' next and possibly last destination. That leaves the Jets still in need of a quarterback, and I believe a lot of people believe they reach out to Derek Carr, and that could be an option. But I believe they go with Jimmy G, a tested quarterback. He has been to Super Bowls both as Tom Brady's backup and in his own right with the 49ers. And before his injury and Brock Purdy having to step in, he led the 49ers to be in prime position for Brock Purdy to step in and them go on that impressive run that ended in the NFC Championship game. So I don't think Jimmy G should be counted out as a quality starting quarterback in this league, as it seems he has been. But we've seen it so many times that a talented young quarterback comes in, and we've seen it multiple times in San Francisco. A talented young quarterback comes in and supplants the solid choice, and sometimes it makes it look like the solid choice is no longer as solid. It happened with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, and it forced Alex Smith to go to Kansas City, where we saw him put up some of the best completion percentage seasons the NFL has ever seen. I believe he is still the NFL completion percentage all-time leader. And then he again was supplanted by a young, exciting quarterback. But that one worked out as Patrick Mahomes is going to his third Super Bowl. So I think Jimmy G to the Jets makes a lot of sense. He gets a lot of those young weapons that many people think that Aaron Rodgers would want in Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. He gets a good offensive coordinator in Nathaniel Hackett. While it didn't work out as a head coach in Denver, I still think he's a great offensive coordinator. Aaron Rodgers loved working with him. And he gets to work with Robert Saleh, who is one of my favorite coaches in the league. I think he's a great coach. So Jimmy G to the Jets makes a lot of sense for me. I'm not sure about Derek Carr. There's been rumors about Washington or Miami. I've heard Derek Carr's name to Indianapolis, but I don't think Indy wants to do another veteran stopgap quarterback after 3 years of Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and Matt Ryan virtually going nowhere. So I think the Colts will be looking to draft, and a lot of projections have C.J. Stroud fitting in there. I think would be a great pick for them. Although with Brock Purdy's rise in San Francisco, Trey Lance will also be on the market. So maybe Indy takes a flyer on him. He's young, he's athletic, he has high upside. So we don't know. So Derek Carr to Tampa Bay makes a lot of sense for me. Maybe the Rams will be in the market with Matthew Stafford possibly retiring pretty soon. Maybe the Rams take a shot on Derek Carr since he's from the West Coast. And so there are a lot of pieces in this QB carousel left to fall. With Tom Brady retiring, it sets off a whole chain of things. We'll see what happens next. The other big thing in the NFL, which raised some eyebrows, was Sean Payton coming out of coaching retirement to join the Denver Broncos with a 5-year contract through 2027. This will give us a good opportunity to see if this last year in Denver was a fluke and a bad pairing between Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson, or if Russell Wilson really is in decline. But I believe that this is a really good fit because Sean Payton made his career, built a legacy with Drew Brees, another undersized quarterback that many people didn't think could play in the league. Similar things that were said about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was even comped to Drew Brees coming out of college. Now, Russ is a little bit older than Drew Brees was when Sean Payton got his hands on him, but they did win a Super Bowl. Russell Wilson has won a Super Bowl, knows what it takes. And we know Denver has the offensive weapons, which is what made this season so disappointing. And we know their defense is good. So I truly believe that Sean Payton and Russell Wilson could bring the results that we thought we'd see last year in Denver. Time will tell, but I like it. I like it a lot. Now I want to transition to the NBA, but not quite yet to LeBron James. news broke just minutes ago that Kyrie Irving, after demanding a trade from the Brooklyn Nets, was traded to the Dallas Mavericks. As I'm recording this, it's Sunday afternoon, and just minutes ago, this news broke. What I was going to talk about before that, I'm still going to. Even though he's found his destination and they acquiesced to his demands, and I really like him in Dallas with Luka. I think that's going to be really fun. Luka's, to me, the MVP this year. After some of the performances he's put on, to me, he's the front runner for MVP, and Kyrie still has greatness in him, I believe. So I really like this trade, unless Kyrie leaves in free agency this summer, because he wants a contract extension, and that is what soured his relationship with the Nets just days ago when they declined such an extension. If he leaves and this is a 28-game experiment, I think it's a bad trade, because not only did the Mavericks give up Spencer Dinwiddie, who is a great bench player, great role player, they gave up 3 draft picks. So if this doesn't turn into a long-term thing for Dallas, I think it's a bad trade. But what I wanted to talk about Kyrie before his trade demand was met was Kyrie brings a lot of baggage. And don't get me wrong, I think he's a great player. He's had great moments in his career. Most of them in Cleveland, being on the 2016 title team. He had those legendary performances in the finals when both he and LeBron scored 41 in the same game. But all told, he's had a lot more news in the press and a lot more negatives about him than on the court. I think his contributions to the NBA do not outweigh his demands. I don't think the contributions he's made to the league outweigh the stress he puts on owners and players in this league. He wanted a trade from Cleveland despite winning a title. He wanted a trade from Boston and alienated himself to one of the most loyal if you're in it, but one of the roughest if you're not fan bases in all of sports. That's his Boston sports fan base. Alienated then. Goes to Brooklyn. Doesn't get off on the right foot with Kevin Durant. Doesn't get off on the right foot with James Harden. Wants to be traded. They say no. Kevin wants to be traded because of all the drama. Basically says Kyrie or me, a sentiment that he's familiar with in his career. They say no, and then Kyrie makes some interesting statements in a press conference saying I want to be here, we're going to build a championship, when everything pointed to the contrary days prior. And this does not include the head scratching things that Kyrie has said in the past about his viewpoints on Earth, on holidays, on vaccines, whatever you name it. There have been multiple times that Kyrie has left us scratching our heads, being like, what is he talking about? And so when you add all of this up, the things that he does off the court and the things that he does when he's not playing basketball in a negative light outweigh the demands that he's making. So I don't think he has you have to have a certain amount of trust and a certain amount of clout and a certain amount of accomplishment to make the demands like the ones that Kyrie is making. LeBron could make these demands. Giannis, Luka, because they're accomplished players who show up and play basketball. And with LeBron being one of the best that's ever played, he's earned it. Outside of the title run, outside of the few years they rematched with Golden State in the finals, winning only one of them, by the way, Kyrie was a question mark when he was drafted number 1 overall after not really playing in college at all. He was the best player on a bad Cleveland team for many years. He went to Boston and things were rolling along great until all of a sudden they weren't for unknown reasons. And now all this mess with Brooklyn. All that to say, if you're going to make demands, you kind of have to make friends first. And Kyrie's never been good at that. Kyrie has never ingratiated himself to people before he makes statements before he speaks on what he wants. And in a league where others control whether you get what you want, GMs and owners, you're kind of required to make friends first, and that's not something Kyrie's been good at. It worked this time. He's in Dallas. Let's see how long that keeps him happy. Because Kyrie wants what Kyrie wants, and that has been the banner of his career. Kyrie wants what Kyrie wants. Everything else be darned. So if Kyrie doesn't want to stay in Dallas, that could get messy as well. This is a theme we're starting to see with Kyrie, and it was a wonder who was going to take a flyer. Dallas did. They gave up a lot. He's pairing with Luka. It should be fun. But when will the fun wear off? I want to pivot back to the NFL real quick. I got out of order a little bit. I want to pivot back to the NFL real quick. Sort of. Offensive lineman Taylor Lewan stated after Tom Brady's retirement that he believed the NFL should retire Tom Brady's number 12 league-wide. And that statement was tweeted out by Sports Illustrated earlier today, asking, do you think Tom Brady's number should be retired league-wide? And there are some, you could make a case for the answer to that being yes. But I saw that, and my first reaction immediately, and I still stand by it hours later, was no. I already think in sports in these last few years we've gotten a little too free with the retirement of players' numbers by a team. I think the requirements and the criteria for retiring a number have gotten a little bit lax in the last few years. I don't agree with the Miami Heat retiring Chris Bosh's number at all. Memphis retiring Zach Randolph's number is on the fence. And so if New England wants to retire Tom's number, go for it. I have no problem with that. Absolutely. That is Exhibit A of a number that should be retired. But league-wide, there have only been 3 numbers retired league-wide in sports ever. So let's take a look at those real quick. Jackie Robinson, Bill Russell, and Wayne Gretzky. Jackie Robinson was a great player. His resume on the field was, I would say, Hall of Fame worthy. But I think the main reason why he's in the Hall of Fame and the main reason why his numbers retired league-wide is not because of things he did on the field. It's because of the difference he made in the league and the legacy that he has in the league. He broke barriers as the first African-American player to play in the league. He fought against hatred that was directed directly at him. He persevered. He became a spokesperson. He became an icon, a legend, a role model in the sport. He broke barriers, and that's why his number is retired, and it's observed every year on April 15th, where every player, white or black, wears his number, because of the difference he made, not just on the field, but off it, and the ripple effect it had. Bill Russell, his number 6 was just retired league-wide earlier this year. And not just because he's one of the winningest players in sports ever with 11 total championships, but because he was a great humanitarian, a great activist. He played a huge role in the civil rights movement. So it wasn't just about, he won a lot of championships on the court. Wayne Gretzky is one of the best athletes we've seen in any sport. He has set marks on the ice that may not be reached. The only person that has a chance at his 892 career goals is Alexander Ovechkin. And Alexander Ovechkin is 38 years old, so he'd have to play 2 more years, and that is... we'll see if that happens. And I don't believe anyone else is really even close. There's only 3 guys ever that have 800 goals, and it's Gretzky, Gordie Howe, and Alexander Ovechkin.
and I don't think that's going to be caught. His record for points in a season, I don't think is going to be touched. What is that? 200 and something. That's ridiculous. I don't think any of these marks are going to be met by any current player, and we'll see how the game evolves, and maybe there's a point freak that comes in, because that's the only way that you're gonna beat Gretzky is have somebody that just has a magnet for the goal, um, has a nose for it and cannot miss. That's the only the 892 is reachable, but only by Alexander Ovechkin, and that may not happen. Wayne Gretzky's contribution to hockey is that he is the clear head and shoulders greatest of all time. And that's really the only sport where you can say there is one undisputed greatest of all time. And the number 999 is synonymous with him, as 42 is synonymous with Jackie Robinson. 6 isn't synonymous with Bill Russell. He's one of the first people you think of with that number, but many players have worn that number, including LeBron James right now, who's been grandfathered in. As long as he plays, he can wear it. But Bill Russell's number was retired for not only his 11 championships, but his work off the court to further the game of basketball during the civil rights movement, during a tough time in this country's history. So even though the number 6 is not synonymous with Bill Russell, it's retired for the person that Bill Russell was. But 42 and 99 are synonymous with the person that wore it. So we look at Tom Brady, and we think, yeah, he's got 7 championships. That's the most championships of anybody. Yeah, he's got the passing yards record. Yeah, he's got the touchdowns record. But what else? It's great, the accomplishments he has on the field. That's great. And like I said, New England is well in their right and very much should retire his number so that nobody wears the number 12 for New England ever again. But Tom Brady's resume on the field may stack up against those other players whose numbers are retired league wide. But league wide retirement criteria is something entirely different than team number retirement criteria, and that's where Tom Brady does not stack up. Off the field, we talk about, yeah, he's got the TB12 Foundation. Yeah, he might do some charity events here and there. But this entire last year, we were talking about his divorce. We were talking about him and Giselle. We weren't talking about charity organizations. We weren't talking about stances that he made. We weren't talking about things he did off the field other than his marriage collapsing. That's not league-wide retirement material. Not only that, but the number 12 is not synonymous with him other than it's in his foundation name, the TB12. Because so many other players who are in the same category as him have worn that number. Roger Staubach, Joe Namath, Terry Bradshaw. And that's just the first 3 that come to my mind. There's so many other. 12 is a popular number in the league. Aaron Rodgers. So, from a standpoint of being on the league, yeah, he has all these records. But, unlike Gretzky, they're breakable. Someone could break the passing yardage record. Heck, he had to break his own record a couple times because Drew Brees took it from him. He had to break the passing touchdowns record a few times because both Peyton Manning and Drew Brees were passing him. So while he has the record, it's very breakable, and I think it will be broken by somebody who's playing in the league. I think all of Tom Brady's records, besides maybe the 7 Super Bowls, will be broken by somebody who's playing in the NFL right now, Patrick Mahomes. And if Patrick Mahomes plays his entire career in Kansas City, I don't want to hear 10 years from now, let's retire 15 league-wide. That's not what it's about. I don't think Tom has any of the criteria that the other 3 guys have who have their number retired league-wide. Bill and Jackie made huge strides for their sport and their country off the field, and were great on the field. Wayne Gretzky set records in his sport that will probably never be broken. Tom Brady's records will be. Jackie and Wayne are 100% synonymous, tied forever, a representation of the jersey number they wore. The number 12 has been worn by a lot of great quarterbacks and will be worn by a lot of great quarterbacks in the future. Tom Brady is deserving of everything he gets. He's deserving of the Hall of Fame. He's deserving of his number 12 being retired by New England. What he's not deserving of is having his number 12 retired league-wide, and that's nothing against him. It doesn't stack up against the other three names that have had that honor bestowed on them. All right, the thing I wanted to spend the most time on, I moved it to last, is LeBron set to pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the all-time leading scorer in the NBA. And I give LeBron a lot of crap on this show. I am the first to say it, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But I want to give him props for playing as long as he has, at the level of which he has played, for staying healthy for the most part his entire career, with the exception of those 60 games he missed a couple years ago. He hasn't missed a ton of time in his career, and he's going to pass Kareem. It's going to happen. The next chance he has is on Tuesday against Oklahoma City. He's 36 points away. He could do it Tuesday because he's averaging 30 points a game in year 20, which is absurd. So I want to take these first few minutes and congratulate him on the impending record of being the all-time leading scorer. It's going to happen, and it's great, and I take nothing away from him. He's one of the greatest players of all time. One of. Which brings me to my next point. I've heard many this week, and as he gets closer to the record, say that if he passes Kareem, that is the final nail in the coffin of LeBron is the greatest of all time. And you could make an argument for that. You would perfectly within your rights. I have no problem with that argument. But here's why that argument is a little iffy to me. If LeBron scores these 36 points, and he will do, because even if he doesn't do it on Tuesday, there are 28 games left in the season. So he's going to do it. The person he's going to pass when he does it, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, despite playing 20 seasons in the NBA, despite being the all-time leading scorer, in many conversations, in many lists of the top 5 players of all time, Kareem's left off. Top 10, he's on it. Top 10 list, Kareem is on the list. He has to be. Because of the way he revolutionized the game. Because the way he became synonymous with the hook shot. The championships. The all-time leading scoring record. He is on almost every top 10 list you're going to see. But he's not on every top 5 list. Which in and of itself reveals that being the scoring leader in all of the NBA does not guarantee you any spot. It didn't guarantee Kareem Abdul-Jabbar a top 5 spot. It doesn't. It continues not to. On some lists, sure. And it does not guarantee LeBron James the greatest of all time slot. Because any conversation you're having for greatest of all time, with the exception of maybe hockey, as I talked about earlier, it's subjective. And the person that it is subject to is whoever is looking at the stats, whoever is looking at the errors, whoever is stacking up these numbers against each other. And for me, even after LeBron becomes the all-time leading scorer, as great of an accomplishment as that may be, he'd still be, to me, that would solidify him as second greatest of all time, because my list currently has Michael 1, Kobe 2, LeBron 3. If LeBron adds a scoring record to his list, absolutely. Number 2, all the way. But the reason why Michael is number 1, and I've said this before, so I won't harp on this too long. For me and for a lot of people, yeah, it's about what he did on the court, the 6 titles, whatever you want to say. But it's about his unwielding and ferocious and unstoppable competitive drive that we haven't seen in anyone besides Kobe. And until all this load management stuff, I saw it in Kawhi Leonard a little bit, but that was in 2019 with the Raptors. The stories I heard then, not so much anymore. I've only seen competitive drive like that in Michael and Kobe, and that plays a big factor. His drive to win championships, not by stacking his team with all-stars, but by training those around him to meet his level. And so I thought about it. Michael Jordan is currently 5th on the all-time scoring list. But when you look at those numbers, he played, and bear with me, I did a lot of research on this. Michael Jordan played 1,072 games in the NBA from 1984 until he retired for good in 2003. That is 300 games less than any of the 4 people ahead of him on the scoring list, and he's still 5th. That is roughly 400 and something games less than Kareem, and 300-ish games less than LeBron. So, I did math. Because as we know, Michael Jordan took 4 full years off from the NBA, and then most of a 5th. And he still finished with a 30.1 career average, which is well higher than LeBron's 27.2, and it's even higher than Kareem's 24.6 average. Both of them, Kareem played 20 years, LeBron is in his 20th, and has not said this is his last. So he will play beyond 20. How much beyond? I don't know. But I did some math. Michael played what equates to 15 years in the NBA. Not consecutive, but he played 15 seasons. His career spans a total of 19 years. If you factor in the 3 years off from 98 to 01 and the year and a half he took off in 94, 95, it spans 19 years. So his top 5 scoring output in the NBA is from 15 years. So, would we still be talking about LeBron as the greatest of all time? Because as I said, scoring is not an automatic barometer of greatest. If Michael had played consecutively his entire career, that would be for 19 years. So I crunched the numbers. This may be a little confusing, bear with me. Michael, in the games that he was on the roster, so take out the 3 years he was retired, take out the year and a half he played baseball. For the years he was on the roster, he played 1,057 games of the possible 1,148, meaning he played 92% of his games. If you want to include 95, when he came back at the end of the year and played 17 of 17 games, he played 1,072 of 1,165. Still a 92% rate. The only reason that number is not higher is because of early in his career when Michael played 18 games in the season before he broke his foot and missed the rest of the year. But he fought to get back earlier than he did. The only reason that number is not higher is because of that. Because Michael Jordan played 80 games or more 11 times in his 15 seasons. Something that does not happen in today's NBA. Based on Michael's average, if he played consecutively in his career, based on his average, we'd have to add 358 more games because he had 4 full non-existent years. His average is 75 games a year, 92% of the season. Again, the reason that's not higher is because of that 1 year where he played 18 games. So, by that average, Michael Jordan plays 75 games a year, plus the rest of the games that he didn't play in the 95 year when he came back, is a total of 358 games that Michael Jordan could have played if he would have played if he played consecutively, bringing his career total from 1,072 to 1,430, which is 21 more games than LeBron currently has. Obviously, LeBron's counting, and still 130 fewer games than Kareem's career total at 1,560. Michael Jordan had a 30.1 scoring average. If you extrapolate that out across the games he would have played had he played consecutively, that brings his 19-year NBA total to 43,043. That's 19 years. Kareem played 20. LeBron is in his 20th. He'll probably play one or two more. 3. We'll see what his sons do. That's the factor. So, I wanted to even the playing field. So I assumed LeBron would play the rest of this every game the rest of this year, which, as I said, due to load management, is not likely. And I added another 75 for Michael Jordan because averages. And now this average, as I said, is conservative because in the 3 seasons he missed with his second retirement, the 3 before that, he played every game of the 82-game season. So 75 is conservative. Let's be real. And before you say, oh, he would have gotten hurt, he would have slowed down. In his age 39 year, which was his last year, he played all 82 games and averaged 20 points. So before you say, oh, he's slowing down, I mean, he was 39, played 82 games. So he was out there if he was healthy. LeBron's career totals, if he played every game the rest of this year and averaged what he's averaging, which is higher than his career average by 3 total points, LeBron James would finish with 1,437 games, and it would add an 840 points to his climbing total, which would bring his 20-year total to 39,192, which, as we know, Kareem's total is 38,387, would be a record. But if we want all things to be equal, we give Michael a 20th year, and using his career average at 30.1, which again is well higher than Kareem or LeBron, that brings his 20-year total perspective. This is all conjecture. This is a lot of math. Don't come at me. That brings Michael's 20-year total to 45,300 points. And he would have played 1,505 games, which is still 55 less than Kareem, and roughly 100 more than LeBron. But LeBron's not going to be done after 20. But that would bring Michael's average for 20 years to level the playing field with Kareem and LeBron at 20 to 45,300. And before you say, oh, well, he only played 13, so you can't make that argument. Well, I'm making the argument. And he didn't play 13 because he couldn't. And he didn't play 13 because he got hurt. He played 13 because, for one reason or another, he got bored. He wanted to do something. It was too easy. He left basketball because he wanted to play baseball. He wanted a different challenge. He wanted to honor his father. He left basketball again because he didn't want to play for another coach. It was pride. It had nothing to do with injuries. It had nothing to do with load management. It had nothing to do with not being able to play the game anymore. Michael missed time by his choosing. And as we've heard from current players in Charlotte, he comes and plays one-on-one at practice and still cooks people, and he's 60. Michael's career longevity was not father time. It was Michael's choice. So, before we say LeBron is the greatest of all time because of points, because of longevity, because of health, let's remember that Michael played 82 games and averaged 20 points at age 39. Let's remember that he took himself out after 15 total years, non-consecutive, because he wanted to. Let's remember that LeBron plays in an era of load management that Michael Jordan did not believe in. So, if Michael Jordan had played 20 years like Kareem and like LeBron, he would have finished with about, law of averages, 45,300 points, which, if that was his total, would not only end the debate of anyone being greater than Michael Jordan, but it would probably be unreachable. 45,000 would likely be unreachable because for a long time many people thought Kareem's 38,387 was unreachable until LeBron got there. So what do you do with 7,000 perspective extra points? Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time because his competitive nature makes it so. LeBron playing 20 years and doing what he's done is great. But he doesn't have something that Michael had. He doesn't have the fire that Michael had. Not to mention that Michael, in 15 seasons, he's credited with, it's conjecture because of that time off, 13, 15. 13 in Chicago, 2 in Washington. Michael won 6 championships. LeBron has 4. So, if we're playing the game of he plays that time consecutively, he definitely has at least one more in 94, 95. He definitely has at least one more in that year and a half block, maybe 2. Because they probably win the year he missed the whole year. Or you can make the argument that they four-peat because he's there. And they made a playoff run in 95 when he came back because he played 17, played well, and they exited early. And that was probably due to a lack of chemistry for Michael not being there all year. So you could make the argument that they win both of those, and then they come back. They could have won 8 in a row. And that is not a stretch to say if Michael hadn't taken that year and a half off, they win 8 titles in a row, which would bring Michael's total to 8 championships. And then, in 98, when the Bulls disbanded, if he hadn't retired, you're telling me they couldn't have built another championship team around him to run at least one more? I'd be willing to bet that Michael Jordan would have 8 or 9 championships if he hadn't have taken time off, and I don't feel like that's a stretch. So, to me, there's really no conversation. Even if LeBron passes Kareem in the next few days, which he will, and congratulations. I'm not taking anything away from LeBron and the accomplishments he has gotten and the accomplishment he's about to get. That's amazing. But when you look at everything, when you look at what Michael Jordan did in far less time, and the fact that many still consider LeBron to be chasing someone that played 7 less seasons, 5 less seasons, however you want to look, that played 400 less games, and counting. The fact that many people, including myself, still consider LeBron to be chasing him tells me all I need to know. There is no chase. If Michael had played 19 years consecutively, and if we want to put him on a playing field 20 years, that mark would be unreachable. 45,000 plus. It's unreachable. There's no debate. Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. Nothing against LeBron. LeBron is number 2. But to me, you can't convince me. And maybe you're like, oh, he's hard-headed. He's whatever. Look at the numbers I just gave you. Michael played 15 years, non-consecutively. He played 82 games at the age of 39 and averaged 20 points. Yeah, LeBron's 38 and he's averaging 30 in a scorer's league. The NBA was not a scorer's league when Michael played. LeBron's averaging 30 in a league where teams are averaging 110, 115, and nobody plays defense. There was a lot of defense played in Michael's day. So to me, the conversation's over. because if Michael had played as long as LeBron had, his scoring output would be unreachable. His titles would be rivaled only by Bill Russell. So congratulations to what LeBron has done, but he's no Michael. That's all the time I have for Empire Sports Talk. This is Roman Gennaro. I promise that once we get back in our new setup, we will have episodes more frequently. But until then, I'm Roman Gennaro, signing off. See you next time.